we've talked today on Steve's show about Riley Cooper, who's a backup principally for the Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver. And Cooper in the news because some time ago, I guess it's a month and a half ago, he had some kind of confrontation that's on video with an African-American security guard at a Kenny Chesney concert. And that's when he dropped the N-bomb, saying that he was willing to jump over the fence and use that word to fight these people. Joining us to talk about this and to give us his take, which I think is more severe than what's been meted out so far by the Eagles and the NFL on Riley Cooper, is Phil Sheridan. Phil is a Philadelphia Inquirer Sports Columnist. Phil, welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. How you doing?
Good, Phil. Well, Phil, your column today was one of the few that I could find locally. Nationally, we're not so sure yet. It's just making its way out. I mean, isn't it enough that the guy's apologized and he's been fined by two entities?
Well, that's a good question. I think my position was that, and you have to kind of understand the context a little bit too. I mean, the Eagles have suspended players over the last few years for missing meetings. You miss a game check because you were late to a special teams meeting. They released Terrell Owens a few years ago for disrupting their locker room and feeling like he was a divisive element on their team. So it's not like in the NFL it's the death penalty to suspend a player for a game for something egregious that they do on or off the field. So in that context, I think a suspension is something that shows that they are putting this matter above mere football concerns. Whereas I think most people see a professional athlete being fined as somebody with a lot of money giving up a little money, kind of a slap on the wrist. So to me, that's the distinction. I think that's a distinction worth making. Everybody's got their own take on it. Obviously, if you're comfortable or anybody else is comfortable that's enough, then so be it. My take was I like to see a little bit more of just a sense that whether he can help them win a football game isn't as important as sending out a message here that they don't want to tolerate this behavior.
All right. Well, we know, though, Phil, right, there have been 40 NFL athletes by one count. I've seen various numbers just this year that have been arrested. And you guys have to cover every day some of the most horrific stuff and try to make some sense out of it, be it DWI, beating women, in the case of Hernandez, the guy's up there, an alleged murder. So why would the Eagles then, why would this not be proportional given how many of these guys are violent, have been convicted, felonies even?
Oh, no, it's a big problem for the league. There's no question about that. And Roger Goodell, as a commissioner, has really tried to make a reputation, I think, for being pretty heavy with punishments and suspensions and dealing with these problems and having basically their view is you protect the shield and you don't embarrass the shield. The NFL shield is their brand, and so the question here is, yes, obviously on the scale of Aaron Hernandez to Riley Cooper, there's a pretty big gap. But I think when you have a situation like this, you have a fan base that has some percentage of minorities in it. You have a locker room that is the majority of players are African American in the NFL, and by a rather large margin. I think sending the message that this is okay or we're not going to take it that seriously, compared to say missing a special teams meeting, as I said earlier, I just think that's not the message you necessarily want to get across. And I think no, on the scale of he's not going to prison for this, and he's not going to be lose his freedoms or anything like that, and nor should he. He's going to have to live with this.
Well, Phil, let me tell you too. A number of my callers today have said stuff along the lines of, and I'll try to phrase it for you. And we've even had a sports writer call it, say that he agreed with this statement. Do you think it's okay for African American players to say it, but not a guy like Riley Cooper? And that's part of what plays into this?
Well, for me, I don't like the word. I don't use the word, and I'm cringe whenever I hear anybody say the word, whether it's Chris Rock on an HBO special.
Do you hear it a lot with football players, though? We hear reports of that also.
I mean, you hear people, you'll hear players say it, and in hip-hop music and certain parts of the culture, I think, as happens in other areas, the gay community took back the word queer and to make that a word of pride rather than a slight and a slur. I think that a lot of young African Americans, especially, see this as a way to disarm the word, to take it back and use it. But to identify an African American individual who's a security guard making minimum wage at a concert, and to, throw that word at him as a direct. I mean, that really is a separate thing from the sort of hip hop calling each other by that name as a kind of almost like a term of endearment. So I think there's a big difference. I mean, I don't like it anyway. I don't listen to music or enjoy having it used around me in any context by anybody. But I think this specific thing, he's clearly, and as we talked to some players today, a lot of players today. Some off the record didn't want to be quoted, but a lot of players today have said that they really were very unhappy and struggling with it, and not prepared to just let this slide by. I think the initial message last night that was pretty carefully gotten out by likes of Michael Vick and Jason Avant, some of the team leaders, was to try to get the team present a team unity. Sort of
okay.
stance.
Well, let me ask them with Roger Goodell. Do you think he's going to send any directive out? We already see Marcus Vick tweeting, and his brother, of course, is going after him on that about bounties, et cetera. We know how the NFL is about bounties with the New Orleans Saints. What are your thoughts on that? And would some of these guys have Riley Cooper's back? He's a marginal player, maybe slightly more than a marginal player, if some guys go after him.
Well, that'll be interesting to see, and that's one of the problems that is sort of, one of the reasons I could see, a team parting ways with a player in the situation, because now you've created this whole thing, and players get hurt all the time, and there's been a huge crackdown on concussion hits, head hits, and that kind of thing. But it happens in the course of the game. Even with the crackdown, it still happens. So if it happens to Riley Cooper, chances are it might be an African-American player who does it. Is that going to automatically create this whole scenario, well, he did it for a reason, or did it just happen because it's a football game? Well, these are all the things that are kind of spun off of this.
I'll take it back to the players, maybe not Phil Sheridan, but back to the Philadelphia Eagles players. Is it your assessment that how do these guys look at some guys in the locker room, like they seem to be okay with Michael Vick, who to me did egregious things. I think he's done well since then. That seemed to be okay, but this would be a bigger problem.
Yeah, well, I think that's an excellent point to make, because I had a very difficult time with them signing Vic at the time, and because I feel like you're asking your fans to support and root for a person that they may suddenly realize that they don't care for, what they stand for and who they might be, and that's where the similarity is. Again, what Vic did in terms of egregiousness, I don't think is considerably worse, and he went to prison for it. And
well, what I'm getting at is, Phil, though, what do we do if the mores of the players say, you've heard some of these guys say, maybe not on the Eagles, but I remember some of the Redskins, well, that's cultural, dogfighting, part of the culture, but this is out of bounds. Do they get to be the guiding force on that, or is it Chip Kelly and Jeff Lurie?
Well, I mean, Chip Kelly and Jeff Lurie make the decision whether Riley Cooper's going to be on their team, and right now that's their decision, and that will be interesting to see how it plays out. The players, I mean, they're not one entity. I think you're going to have men who, Jason Avant again is a very devout Christian. He came out and said, I ask God's forgiveness. I'm not going to withhold forgiveness from somebody else. But other guys are, I saw him as a friend, and now I'm not so sure what I got here. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis, and some guys who know him a little better might say, hey, he's a little bit of a rockhead when he gets a beer or two in him. I'm not going to hold it against him. Other guys don't know him so well and are looking at him and saying, who is this guy, and can I trust him? It's a really ugly can of worms to open, and he didn't mean to open it in a way that he'd get caught. He just said it in a moment, and it was captured on video, and that's the age we live in now. But he's going to wear this thing as a mark on him for probably as long as he plays in the NFL.
Thank you, Phil Sheridan. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.